It's Benzil Solomon's son. It's the other one.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Today is Daf Hey, Mesechus Megillah. We left off at the top, and away we go. So we left off Omar Rav, top line of Hamid Aleph. I don't know when Meir's not here. So Omar Rav Megillah Bismana Karin Oisa Afilu Biyachid. So reading the Megillah Bismana, referring to during time on Yudalad, let's say for an Omal city, one can read it even biyachid, right? Because there's already persumanisa because the day is Purim, and he's reading it, so there's already is persumanisa. There already is publicizing the miracle. Shalom bismana basara. But if it's shalom bismana, in other words, the kfar makdim liyam knisa, then you can only read it in 10. And Rav Asi Omar bein bismana bein shalom bismana be'asar. Rav Asi says whether it's bismana or shalom bismana, right? Then you should do it be'asar. Now, of course, he doesn't mean that you have not fulfilled your obligation if you haven't done it in 10. But rather, he means that if one could read a biyachid, he should go ahead and find 10. He should go ahead and be holech achar asar to search out 10. Obviously, if you can't find 10, he should still read biyachid afilu bismana. But even bismana, he should go ahead and seek a minyan. That one time there was a ma'isa that I guess they were less than 10. One time there was a ma'isa where basically Rav was less than 10 people, and he was concerned with the shita of Rav Asi, right? Who said that you should eat afilu bismana should be be'asar. Fine. Me Omar Rav Hachi, and the Rav says Hachi Rav you the Bered Rav Shmuel Bar Shiles Mishmei the Rav. If a Purim was in Erev Shabbos, came out the 14th, let's say came out on Shabbos. Erev Shabbos Zmanam. Erev Shabbos it was the Zman. So we're asked, Erev Shabbos Zmanam? Shabbos Zmanam. What do you mean Erev Shabbos was Zmanam? Right? That's the 13th, right? We said Yudalad was Shabbos. What do you mean Friday was Zmanam? Right? Shabbos Zmanam. Who? Elalav Hachi. This is what it means to say. Shalom Zmanam Kizmanam. In other words, that it made the time of Shalom Zmanam Friday just like Zmanam. How so? Ma Zmanam afilu biyachid, just like Zmanam, according to the sheet of Rav, that Zmanam is afilu biyachid. You don't need a sarah. Shalom Zmanam. So if you're reading Shalom Zmanam, you're reading it early on the 13th, on the Friday, afilu biyachid, even by one. So you see over here that Rav called it, right? Says afilu. You can even read a biyachid. She says, "Lo, le'inyan mikra Megillah be'asar." Right? No, really, when it comes to Megillah, you need 10 over there, right? You're reading early, you need 10. Ela ma erev Shabbos zmanam. Rather, so what's the interpretation of what he says that erev Shabbos zmanam? Right? The 13th Friday was the zmanam, right? The afuki midarebi. The amar hovel nidcha eresmin kaman yidcha liyam knisa. That according to Rebbe, that says once you're already pushing off, right, the large unwalled cities from the 14th, right, because it's Saturday, they can't read on Saturday. So you move it all the way to the Yom HaKnisa onto Thursday. And therefore, the Erev Shabbos Manam, therefore when it says Erev Shabbos is Manam, it's teaching you that when you're reading, you're not reading it on the 12th, on Thursday in the Yom HaKnisa. Rather, we push off from Shabbos only one day to Friday and not 2 days. And that's what he was teaching us.
The 14th or the 15th?
The 14th. The 14th was Shabbos. So over there, when he says Erev Shabbos Zman, I was teaching you that which you push it off, we only push it off one day to Erev Shabbos, to the 13th, and not to like the other shittas who held that when you're pushing off already, push it off to the Yom HaKnisa, which would be Thursday, which would be the 12th.
Now, did they mean that you read it with a bracha, or
you do? Yeah, if Yom HaKnisa, you read it with a bracha. That's the mitzvah. That's the mitzvah. When? Yeah. What do you mean?
Okay, if you were reading it yourself, you would also
still bracha, right?
On the day itself, but not on the Yom HaKnisa.
No, the Yom HaKnisa, if you hold, you're saying, what do you mean? If you hold that you need a basara, right? So the chara, right? If you hold shalom bismana, you need ein karin osal basara. There's right? So you can't read it without 10 if you hold that, right?
Oh, you can't even read it at all.
Right. Well, you can read it without a bracha, right? Like you just pointed out. right? But you don't have the mitzvah of Mikra Megillah without 10 people if it's the Yom Knisa. Fine. All right, Naya Mishnah. Mishnah, hey, with Aleph. Ezi Ir Gedayla, we've talked about Ir Gedayla. Kol Sheyesh Basar Batlanim. Any town where there is at least 10 people who are Batlanim or Mavatal from the work to be found in the base of Knesses. Pachas Mikan is less than Hareza Kfar. This is a village. And with villages, with these, we said that you'd make it earlier and not later. But go back to your brain from Tinus. But when it comes to the wood offerings of the Kohanim, right? We said there's certain days where Kohanim celebrate like this is their day because their family brought wood, right? When they returned to the base of Mikdash, and therefore that day was commemorated as their day of wood. If their day of wood came out on Shabbos or the Tisha B'Av, right? Or one to bring his Chagiga or Vakahal, or when they did the mitzvah Hakel. All right. When the mitzvah of Hakel, when they used to go ahead every 7 years at the end by Sukkot, they would go ahead and read after the first day, and if it came out after the first day was Shabbos, then all of these were ma'acherin v'lo makdimin. All of these they would go ahead and be ma'acher. They would do it after, right? They would do it the next day. They would do it Sunday, right? And not Friday, right? No, as opposed to Megillah, where we go before, right? And Afbi Shalom Makdim. By the way, even though we say Makdim and Liamach, we say it earlier, not later. Mutarim behesped Tanas Avyon. It's mutter on those days, even though you're reading the Megillah early. So let's say you're in the village, and then they read on Knisa, and they're reading on the 12th. Right. Nevertheless, those days where you read the Megillah, it's mutter behesped. You can make could be a hesped on that day. It could be a fast for that day for bad dreams, whatever it is. Matanas Avyonim, and also Matanas Avyonim. You don't that.
That's right.
As opposed to
Shalach Manas, right? It was not. So we'll soon see in terms of Matanas Avyonim, right? Versus so those can be done. One can fulfill his obligation of Matanas Avyonim then, as opposed to other things like Alan pointed out, right? The Shalach Manas. Which not necessarily can be done on the other day. And Amar Rabbi Yehuda Emasai, when are we talking about? When normally the people from the villages, they come into the cities on Mondays and Thursdays. But when they don't come in, not on Monday and not on Thursday, and Karinosa Ella Bismana. You can only read a Bismana when it comes out on the 14th. Fine. Zak the Gemara. Satana. Asar Batlan Shuvesa Knesses. Right, we say by that which you said, Tamatlan, I'm referring to in the base of Knesses, and Be'elam Magdim Lo Ma'acher. So my time, and what's the reason why we're not Ma'acher when it comes to the Megillah? So Rabbi Abba or Shmuel Amar Kra, the pasuk says V'lo Yavor. Right, you should not pass. In other words, you can't pass the 14th or the 15th without reading it. Right, you can't push it off till afterwards. V'Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Shmuel. Another statement of Rabbi Abba Amar Shmuel. Menayin Shein Ma'anim Yamim L'Shanim. How do we know that one does not count a year by days? Right. In other words. Let's say a person says, okay, I'm not going to do something for a year, that he doesn't just go ahead and count, 365 days. Rather, he counts 12 months. Shamar, the pasuk says, so you count months for years and you don't count days for years. The Kesari, Mishum Rabbi Abba, Amar, Amru, how do we know also that when it comes to months, right, you don't count hours, right? It says, okay, I'm not going to do something for a month, a certain amount of hours. No, you count it. Shinamar ad chodesh yomim, right? It says a month of days. Yomim ata mechash. The chodesh, in other words, a month is composed of days. V'ata mechash shos chodesh, but you don't count a month by hours. Fine, 2 dots. But however, when it comes to the wood offerings and Tisha B'Av and Chagiga and Hakel, then we do it later and not before. So Tisha B'Av, what's the reason why Tisha B'Av we don't move it to the Friday, move the Sunday? So Pranios Lavakdimi, right? We don't move up Pranios. We don't move up bad things, right? Bad things aren't good, and therefore we never make it earlier. We'll make it later. Chagiga, the Hakel, because you can't go ahead and bring it right before the time is due, right? If it's due on Saturday, you can't bring it Friday because it's not the Zman Chiyuv already. So therefore, you can bring it Sunday because it already had the Zman Chiyuv. One was already obligated that. And Tana, we learned in Brisa Chagiga, v'chol zman Chagiga ma'achrin. Chagiga and the times of a Chagiga is ma'achrin. So
That's
wait.
the reason why on Shavuos, there are the additional days.
We want the
After
opinions there, right?
Shavuos.
Yeah, the whole week afterwards. Right, Mashlim. Yeah. Now, Bish Lama Chagiga. So this price is very funny because it says Chagiga v'chol zman Chagiga. So it's like a double lashon. So Bish Lama Chagiga. I understand what it means when it says Chagiga. Dimik Levi Shabbos. So Me'achrin Lab. Lebasa Shabbos. That if the time of the korban and the Chagiga, she brought right one goes ahead. Let's say Pesach and brings us a Chagiga. See, and that he brings it, and it's Shabbos is the day, and that was the first day is Shabbos, and never get to push it off till afterwards, right? Chagidi make Shabbos ma'achri lebasa Shabbos. So Ella's zman chagiga mai. What does it mean zman chagiga? So now the Gemara gives a couple interpretations. So Amar Abaisha hachi kamar chagiga b'Shabbos the oilas ria afilu b'yantif. Right. So it says the chagiga is brought on Shabbos. Oilas ria is a yantif. The zman chagiga ma'achrin. Right, that if one has, when he comes to the temple, should not come empty-handed. He has to bring an olah, right? So the olah comes out, and so he doesn't push it off even on yantif. Even on yantif, right? One does not go ahead and bring us olah, right? When he comes there, afilu b'yantif is zman chagiga ma'achrin. We push it off. So if he was first there and it's the first day of yantif, he pushes off. He brings the olas real later on. And Mani, whose opinion is this? This is Beis Shammai. This is the opinion of Beis Shammai. The Tanakh in the Mishnah. Beis Shammai Yoimrim. Mavin shlamim b'yantiv ein seimich aleim. Right, one can bring a shlamim and yantiv because the shlamim, part of the shlamim, one does go ahead and eats. So since he's eating from it, so that's part of the simchas yantiv. But to bring an olah, which is completely consumed on the mizbeach, so therefore he doesn't do that, and therefore he can't do smicha. He can't do smicha. He can't lean on the animal because he can't use an animal on yantiv or Shabbos. But you can't bring olas. So therefore, Beis Shammai would be like this opinion that says you can't bring your olas ria on yantif. One could go ahead and bring a shlamim or an olah on yantif, and therefore, if the time when one is supposed to bring his olas ria is on yantif, according to Beis Hillel, go ahead and bring it. We're not ma'achrin. You don't have to bring it Sunday. You can bring it on yantif. It's part of simchas yantif, and therefore. Well, by an olah, you don't need it, right? It's completely consumed. So,
They're saying when yantif coincides with Shabbos.
No, even yantif alone.
We're supposed to bring the olas ria on yantif.
Not according to no.
Not according. Beis Shammai says no. Valo olos.
Only not olah.
Aval lo olos, right?
Shlamim, yes.
Shlamim, yes.
Yes, olos, no.
Right. Because shlamim is part of you eat. You eat shlamim, right?
You're saying olas, you can. You're saying.
Yeah. According to Beis Shammai, you have to push off the olah. You can't bring on yantif.
You only have to bring home.
Right.
You're only allowed to bring it home.
Right.
Eat it.
Correct. Right. It's that either. So therefore, don't burn it. Right. That's right. It's not, doesn't override yantif. Beis Hillel says no problem. You can bring olos. You can bring shlamim. No problem. So therefore, this
Because
interpretation of this price is like Beis Shammai.
There's a tivui to bring an olas ria.
Right. But out of yantif for the holiday. So you can bring it on the right now. Right. So Rav Omar Chagiga Chazar Chagiga. Rav says the Mishnah says Chagiga Chazar Chagiga. Ma'achrin Tvei Lo. You can't bring it beyond that. What do you mean? The Tanakh with the Mishnah Mishla Chag b'Yantav Harishon. Person who does not right bring his Chagiga and Yantav Harishon shel Chag Chagig v'Holech Kol HaRegel Kulo. Right. You can go ahead and bring the entire regel. Right. Kulo v'Yantav Achron shel Chag. Right. And even on the Yantav Achron shel Chag. However, let's say it all passes. It doesn't bring it even during the intermediate days, right? Even during Chalmud, then he doesn't bring it afterward. Rav Ashi Omar, Chagiga, what does it mean? Ma'achrin, the Afilo Tzeres, the Chiddush Talmud teaches by Shavuos, right? Shavuos doesn't have days of Chalmud following it, right? Now, as once Shavuos is over, like the holiday is done, like Pesach, there's still Chalmud, right? Sukkot is still Chalmud, but Shavuos, Afilo Tzeres, the Chad Yomim, Ma'achrin. Then you get machrin, which is like what Eddie pointed out, right? One is fortunate enough to go to a shul where they don't say tachlim for the 7 weeks, for 7 days afterwards. So therefore, right, as for this reason, the Tanan, modim shim chalatzer, so yes, b'Shabbos, sheyayim tabuach achar Shabbos, right? The day of slaughtering it comes afterwards. In other words, it's pushed off to even after Shabbos. It's not done before. Fine. New case. Bottom line. Omar Rebbe Elazar, Omar Rebbe Chanina. Rebbe Nata Natia Purim. Rebbe planted a sapling on Purim. The Rochotz, the Kroina Shel Tzipuri, and he went ahead on the day of the Shuk, and for when everyone was around, he went to go ahead and dip in the springs of Tzipuri. B'Shiva Aser B'Tammuz on the 17th of Tammuz. Ubikesh La'akar Tisha B'Av, and he wanted to uproot Tisha B'Av. However, below Hodulo, the Chachamim do not agree. Some of the fun of so says Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, Rabbi Loikachaymas. Now this wasn't the mice. It wasn't like he planted, on Purim, and then he went ahead and he went ahead and then went for Schwitz or went to go ahead and soak right on Tisha B'av. Excuse me, on Shivas Tammuz, and he wanted to uproot Tisha B'av rather Ella Loikachaymas Ella, but Tisha B'av Shechal Yes B'Shabbos. Rather, the whole Ma'isa was Tisha B'av that year. So it was 3 weeks earlier. So Shivas Tammuz was pushed off, and also Tisha B'av was also pushed off from Shabbos. So Havidachinu Le'achar Shabbos, we're going to push off till Sunday. V'Omar, and he says, Baba Rebbe, since we're already pushing it off, let's just be done with it. Below Hodacham, and the Chachamim did not agree. They says, no, it's not that it gets pushed off for this year and you don't do it this year. Rather, we get pushed off to Sunday, but we still go ahead and do Tisha B'av on Sunday. Right, and he said, right, but he didn't want to do it. And then he said, okay, you're right. And he agreed. Okay, 2 is better than 1. If it was just me, I would have, uprooted it, from this year. But we'll listen to you guys. 2 is better than 1.
2 is better than 1 on what?
When it comes to learning that the psak halach here, he would have passed him by himself. He would have said, okay, there's no Tisha B'av this year because it fell out on Saturday.
2 people pass.
So the Chachamim, I guess, he says, okay, better for you, Yeah,
I would vote with him.
Yes. So the Gemara asks, Rebbe, Heichi Nata Natiya B'Purim. Now, how could Rebbe, by the way, going back very positive, how could Rebbe plant a sapling or a tree on Purim? Well, Tani Rav Yosef, the pasuk says, Simcha Mishtav Yantiv. We learn it says Megillus, Esther it says Simcha Mishtav Yantiv. Simcha Melamed Shasur Behesped. It says Simcha went for there. It's also to go ahead and give a hesped. Mishte, what it says, Mishte Melamed Shasur Batanis. You can't go ahead and fast on that day. The Yomtiv, and it says the Yomtiv, Melamed Shasur Asiyas Malacha. You can't do Asiyas Malacha. You can't go ahead doing malachas, planting trees. So Ella Amar Rebbe. So it says, excuse me, Ella Rebbe Barabasar Havi. Rather, Rebbe was somebody who celebrated on the 14th, right? Lived in Chicago. Right? And when he planted on the 15th. Shushan Purim, as we call it, right? Any is this true? Rebbe B'Tveria Havi. What do you mean? Rebbe lived in Tveria. Tveria Mukavaz Chayma Miyamasi Shubinun. And Tveria Havi. And Tveria was a place that was walled during the days of Shubinun, and therefore he should have been celebrating the 15th. So the 15th was completely aser. So Rebbe Bar Chamiasar Havi. Okay, so say like this: Rebbe was somebody who celebrated Purim on the 15th. And when he planted it on the 14th.
Where was he raised? Where was
He was living in Tveria. He was in Tveria. He was up north.
But wait,
So
the thing about Tveria is that
we'll get to
it
Tveria.
was walled.
We'll get to Tveria. Let's see. The Tveria Mukafes Chayma Mimas Shubinu. And who says, right? And who says so obvious, right? That Tveria was walled and they did Shubinun. But Chizkiah, we'll get there soon, not yet. But the Chizkiah Karbet Tveria Babasar Chamiasar. Chizkiah, who also was in Tveria, he used to go ahead and read it on the 14th and 15th, right? With mistake, like because he was mistake. So whether because he was in doubt whether it was a wall Seder time to Shubinun. So he says, okay, fine. Okay, no big deal. Chizkiah was in suffix, so therefore he read both. But Rebbe was certain, so therefore Rebbe, since he was certain, he can go ahead and plant on the 14th. Umi Shari. Is that mutter, even though you celebrate the 15th, to go ahead and do this malacha on the 14th? Baksi, Megillas times said Megillas times. Es Yom Abasav, Es Yom Chamisha Asar. You may Purim. Mention Megillas times is also the holiday of Purim. Inun on these days, on the 14th and 15th of Adar, a person should not go ahead and give Hespedim, right, and do all these malachas. Right, that which is teaching Megillas times is teaching you that even on the 14th, right, if you celebrate the 14th, that the prohibitions of Purim also apply to the 15th. And if you celebrate the 15th, which we said Rabbi did, he's in Tveria, right? So all the prohibitions should apply also on the 14th. So we come back to the question. So where that's no, Hani Mili Basbid Tanis. That's not referring to Hasbid and Tanis. We're referring to giving a eulogy or fasting of Al Malacha. However, when it comes to Malacha, Yain Achad Su Lo. But maybe when it comes to Malacha, it's only one day and not more. So Gemara says still Aini. Rav Chazilo Gav Davika Sadi Kisna Bepuria Valatia. One time Rav. Okay, so now right now we had Rebbe was planting, and now comes a Ma'aser with Rav. So Rav once saw a person that he was planting Kisna, flax, on Purim, and Vilatia, and he cursed it, and he cursed the flax, it should grow. Kisna, it didn't grow. So why did he curse him? So Hassan Bar Mahavi. So it said, okay, maybe over there he was planting on his own day. He was planting. You're saying Asis Malacha is mutter the other day. So why, if someone was a 15-day reading guy, right? Shusha Purim guy, lived in Shalim, whatever, right? So what's the big deal? Planting the 14th, right? Because he said the Malacha is the prohibition of Malacha doesn't apply to the other day. So he says, no, Hassan Bar Mahavi. Over there, that guy, he was actually. He read on the 14th, and he was also planting his flax on the 14th. So that's why he cursed the flax.
So we have a halacha that you're not supposed to work on Purim.
Asiyas malacha, yeah, that's right. So that was learned out from the
Where was that?
where was that? Where did we learn out from? We said it says three. It says Simcha Mishtav Yomtiv. Yeah, that was Rav Yosef, right? Rav Yosef taught that towards the time. Now, so what it says, Rabba Berei the Rava, Afilu Tema B'Yaime, even if you say it was during his day, but has to retire his Kiblu Alayu, Malacha like Kiblu Alayu. However, maybe during this, even his own day, he reads on the 14th, right? And he so therefore the 14th, this is Purim. Nevertheless, they were makabel not to eulogize on the 14th and not to fast on the 14th. However, Malacha, when it comes to Malacha, that Eddie was just asking about, like Kiblu Alayu, right? That they never were makabel. Why? To be caught in the beginning. See, it says over there, Simcha Mishtav Yontif. It says over there, it's days of happiness, right? Drinking and Yontif. Well, when it repeats it later on, right? It doesn't mention, right? It doesn't mention, right? And then it doesn't mention Asiyas Malach. It only mentions, right? You may Simcha Mishtav. So therefore, Yontif like see. Bella, Rav, my time. If that's the case, Rav, my time with you, right? Oh God, well, why did he go ahead and curse that person's that his that what you planted? So in other words, that was something that if everybody is noheg for it to be usher, then it becomes usher. So since the townspeople there, they were noheg not to do malacha and not to plant any flax. So therefore, when he planted flax, he went out of the ordinary against the tzibor. Therefore, he cursed it. Uva asrei the Rebbe, and that which Rebbe he himself he said planted earlier. Asrei the Rebbe like no, and the Rebbe was in a place where they weren't noheg not to do malacha. So therefore, there was no issue of Rebbe planting even on his own day, right? To plant a sapling. V'boy sema. No. Really, you can say it was they were no the Rebbe the Tia Simcha not, but rather Rebbe wasn't planting just a tree or a stam tree. Rather, he was planting on the Tia Simcha. Okay, the Tanai we learned in the Mishnah, we saw once again. Put on your tinus hat. If all these fast days, right? Passed the people all they fasted for rains and then they weren't answered. There's rain. They minimize, right? They limit their business. Also the binyan, they're building or the tia, they're planting. So Abraham the suman and the weddings. But Tanala was taught of there. Now what you say is Aser is binyan. It's binyan shel simcha and tia shel simcha, right? So we're talking about a binyan of simcha and plantings of simcha. So therefore, we see there's a difference between regular plantings and plantings of simcha. So AC binyan shel simcha is that by chasan zebino. Right? What is a building for a simcha? That's building a base chasana, right? The place that's to be used for the wedding and perhaps for a son to live, for a son. And right? You go ahead and you plant the trees, for the princes and the kings and the princes. So those are plantings of happiness. Those they would refrain from.
What is the base of this?
I'm sorry?
What is the base for this?
So what? No, so that's not this.
Why you can do wedding
No,
he said that for the malacha, right?
No, but they say also misim, right?
Right. He was
doing. So I said,
right. So he went ahead and he planted an tia shel simcha, which was not us. It was only an tia of doing work. That was us. It wasn't for work. It was for simcha. So therefore, that type of planting would be okay to do. And
it was only mentioning weddings by your fast day, like if it's
right. Now let's get right. So let's get back to Tveria. So Chizkiah Kari B'Tveria B'Arbasa B'Chamiyasa. B'Sveikale. So Chizkiah used to go ahead and read. He was in Tveria. He read both in the 14th and 15th one because he was Masavik. Imakav Chayim Miyamos Yishub Benun. He Elo. He was uncertain as to whether it was considered to be a walled city in days of Yishub Benun or not. Umi Misveikale. And what kind of doubt is there? So Milsa Umi Misveikale Milsa de Tveria. Milsa was Tveria and Vav Safek. Baksi the pasuk says Varei Mivtzer Hatzadim. Those that were fortified, they were surrounded. Tsar, v'chemes, v'rekes, the kineres, the Carmelan rekes, the Tveria, and we established that which it says rekes in the pasuk is referring to the fortified city of Tveria. So Tveria was fortified. So the rest is high to time with the misfakele mishum the chad gisa sure the yamas havi right. One side of Tveria was the water. That was the water was one of its sides. If that's the case, my misfakele vadilav. It's for sure not a walled city, right? The tiny little price. So what's the other case we're talking about walled cities? The pasuk says Shaloi Chema. What talks about Batei Rechema, right? Selling houses in walled cities. It says Shaloi Chema, L'Shar Iger Saviv, Iger, and says it can't have just other things surrounding it, right? It can't have houses as one of the sides, right? And Saviv, Pralatveria, Shema Chamasa, the Tveria, Shema Chamasa. So it said, and also when it says Saviv around it says to exclude Tveria, which is not surrounded by a wall. It's surrounded only three sides. One side is water. It's not surrounded by a wall. So therefore, when it comes to walled cities, selling Batei Rechoma, it has to be surrounded by walls. It can't be surrounded partly by townhouses. It can't be surrounded partly by water. That doesn't qualify as a walled city. So what type of suffix is Tveria? It says Beferish in the pasuk. Tveria is not a walled city. So one has to know, Leidin Batei Rechoma, when it comes to the halachas of Batei Rechoma, when it comes to halachas of walled cities, when it comes to selling your house in a walled city, whether it returns or not, right? Let me speculate. There's no doubt. Obviously, Tveria would not qualify. Let me speculate. When it comes to Megillah, we call walled cities. My prazim, my mukafa. What does it mean? Oh, unwalled cities or walled cities? Gabi Mikra Megillah. When it comes to Megillah, Mishum Dahani Miglu Vahani Lo Miglu Vadinami Miglu. Is it because one side is open and the other side is open? Therefore, it's unwalled because Tveria is open from one of the sides. Oh, Dilmer, maybe Mishum Dahani Mignu. It's protected. Vahani Lo Mignu. Maybe an unwalled city is not protected, and something which has a river on the side that you can't, they can't go from that way through land is protected. And therefore, this is also protected. So therefore, he was Masavik. What was the qualification of being a walled city? Is it that it has to be completely surrounded by a wall? Or is that it has to be protected, from the sides, and it was considered to be protected? And that's therefore, he was Masavik. And fine. And Rav, 645, Mr. Shem. Yeah. Have a good Shabbos. And Ravasi Megillah Behutzel Barbasa B'Chamisar, right? And Ravasi would read Megillah in Hutzel on the 14th and the 15th, the Sveikale, because he was in doubt as to whether it was considered to be a walled city in the days of Shuminun or not. And he could argue some say different version. Amar Ravasi, High Hutzel, referring to the town of Hutzel, the Vez Binyamin, right? This place of Hutzel, which is Binyamin, was surrounded by walls during mostly Shubanun, and therefore it requires to read on the 15th, and there was no suffix. You don't have to read on the 14th at all. All right, we'll stop here at the bottom line. So Sunday, Mitzvah Shem, 6:45.